Martin, in just a second, is going to give us 5 things we may not have known about women's basketball this year. But before we get into that, we are going to toss it back super quickly to the last episode of Protect Our Queens, featuring North Carolina State forward Mimi Collins.
First of all, we had it on our minds like right after Charlotte. Like as soon as the buzzer went off, it was like UConn. We just said as a team and as players like that we're the underdogs. Like don't ever forget that. Like you're an underdog, so it's like you don't have nothing to lose. Like I know we have high goals for each other. I know we want to win this. I know we're very determined. I know we have all the pieces to win this. We just came in and was like, this is us. So and we just try to show that toughness, show that we could defend and share the ball, and we got it done.
Shout out to Mimi Collins. NC State is a top 5 team in the country right now. You better be talking about them about
They
Final
deserve
Four before she comes for you.
it. No, they're I
Playing
if
very well.
I
Playing
my
very
final
well.
my 100% teams I think are going to be in the Final Four right now are I think South Carolina, UCLA, NC State, and Iowa are going to be in the Final Four. There are just teams that I think like USC and Notre Dame that could maybe shock the world and get there. NC State has been really good this year.
Really good. They're playing really well. Really well. All right. So I got 5 things from 2020.
Put us on game. Put us
We
on
got 5
game.
things. Just some things to take note of. If you've been really paying attention to women's basketball this year, from the NCAA tournament to even the WNBA season, you know that we've had some really impressive benchmarks and records set with women's basketball this year. So 5 things from women's basketball in 2023. Number 1, just a quick fun fact about the NCAA women's championship game between LSU and Iowa. More people watched that game than game 1 of the World Series. So that's pretty significant. I don't know how many people usually watch the World Series. I'm not one of them, but more people watched the NCAA women's championship, Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, LSU, Iowa, than game 1 of the World Series. So that seems significant. Another thing, sticking with that game, that national championship game between LSU and Iowa, that national championship game had 9.9 million viewers. So almost 10 million people watched LSU and Iowa in the national championship. It was the most viewed women's college basketball game on record and the most viewed college basketball game ever on any ESPN platforms, and that's men's or women's. So we got the most watched college basketball game on ESPN ever on ESPN this year, and it was the women's national championship. Take it over to the WNBA for a second. So the WNBA season this year reached over 36 million unique viewers across all national networks, and that's the highest since 2008, and it's up 27% from last season. So shout out to the WNBA for having a really benchmark season all the way from the draft through the WNBA finals. Sticking with the draft, so the WNBA draft this year averaged 572,000 viewers on ESPN. A lot of those probably came from the excitement about the freshies from South Carolina getting drafted. So had over 570,000 viewers on ESPN of the WNBA draft this year, which was up 42% from last year. And that's the most watched WNBA draft since 2004. So we got 2 more things. Back to college basketball. So ESPN's coverage of the women's college basketball regular season was the most watched since 2015. It averaged 190,000 viewers over 83 games, which is up 11%. The season's most watched regular season game was LSU versus South Carolina on ESPN, which averaged over 1 million viewers, a million and a half viewers. And that was the most viewed regular season women's college basketball game on any network since 2010. And then lastly, number 5, just back staying in college basketball, the NIL wave, players making money has obviously been a huge thing this year. Angel Reese and Flau'jae Johnson on LSU, obviously teammates. They won the national championship and they've been at the top of the list for college athletes on these NIL valuation lists and sponsorship deals and partnerships and all that stuff. So Angel and Flaugier are responsible for, as of August 2023, this is per On3 NIL 100 valuations, Angel and Flaugier have reached over $1 million NIL valuation, and they're the first women's college basketball players to be up there. There are some athletes in other sports who are up there with them, but they're the only women's college players to reach over $1 million. And I believe they were the first college basketball players to reach over $1 million, whether it was men's or women's. So those are your 5 things, fun facts about women's basketball this year in a historic 2023 for the sport.
I guess the best thing about that is there's still a lot of people who say that nobody watches women's basketball, but I've got 10 million people watching LSU and Iowa, and I've got less than 10 million people watching first game of the World Series. And I don't want to hear anything about, oh, well, it was the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. I ain't trying to hear none of that. Baseball is America's sport. I'm not trying to hear none of that. Shout out to the woman. You see what the shirt says, thou shalt not try me. That's all I got. That's cool, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, you make a good point. There are still people hanging on their heads on and their hats on hyperbole. Nobody watches. You're wrong. You had me at nobody. Like, now I can't.
Nobody cares. That's not true. There's a lot of people care.
Yeah, I don't take you seriously.